Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, experts are raising alarms about this government's plan to distribute a COVID vaccine. We don't have the freezer capacity. We've signed deals that mean other nations, like the United States, will receive millions of doses before a single Canadian does. When can Canadians expect to see a real plan for COVID vaccine distribution from this government?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that the best way to get through this COVID crisis is by vaccines, and that's why we've been working since the summer on signing deals with a record number of companies around the world to ensure that wherever or however someone gets the right vaccine, it will be available in Canada. We're actually positioned better than just about any other country in the world in terms of access to a robust portfolio of vaccines because we took the leadership as a government and got it done. We are also ensuring that we're going to be able to distribute those vaccines as they become available across Canada, and Canadians can count on us.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said they've signed a record number of deals. The Minister told committee they've signed freezer contracts, but she won't say who got the contracts or how much. Maybe Frank Baylis makes freezers, Mr. Speaker. Officials said that Public Health Agency would be responsible for the logistics of handling and distributing the vaccine, but we can't get a clear answer on that either. Why is the Prime Minister refusing to reveal key information to Canadians who need to know about the availability and distribution of a COVID-19 vaccine?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the number one question I get from Canadians these days, and actually over the past 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, has been, when is this all going to be over? How much longer are we going to have to go through this? That's what Canadians want to know. And of course, now that we see that there are vaccines on the horizon, people are very excited about it. And what I can tell you is we're in for a number more months of needing to do the right things before these vaccines start landing anywhere around the world. And that's why we are working very hard to make sure that Canadians get those vaccines the right way and properly. We are working very hard on a range of different vaccine delivery methods, and we will be there to support Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after obfuscation, after prorogation, the number one question I get when I travel around Canada is, when will this Prime Minister finally answer a question and be transparent with Canadians, Mr. Speaker? The distribution, he said, would be by the military. The government distribution story keeps changing. Perhaps they've hired a storyteller, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Public Services also said that she's waiting on Health Canada approval for any vaccine. Pfizer applied for emergency approvals in the United States. We know that Health Canada delays on rapid tests led to problems. Will the Prime Minister commit today to rapid vaccine approval?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you when I speak with Canadians from coast to coast to coast, they're not asking me about QP. They're asking me about COVID. And that is continuing to be what we are working on as our entire focus. And every step of the way, whether it has been on stepping up on PPE, whether it has been stepping up on testing and indeed rapid testing that we have delivered to the provinces, that the provinces are now evaluating how they want to deploy it, we have been there to deliver all these things that Canadians need, and we will be there to deliver on vaccines just like we've had their back in every other way during this pandemic.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Chelsea Craig is the President of the Liberal Party of Canada in Quebec. Recently, Ms. Craig said that Bill 101 was an oppressive act. After its adoption, the Liberals continue to not respect Bill 101. Why are Liberal leaders hindering the development of French in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I won't take any lectures from a party that still refuses to agree to appointing bilingual Supreme Court judges. We have always done everything we need to defend the French fact in this country, including, as we've said, in Quebec. We know that it's essential to ensure that French flourishes across the country. We also need to be working in partnership with the Government of Quebec to protect French in the province. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the member for Saint-Laurent was very contemptuous towards francophones. No one denounced her, none of the French Liberal members. No action. After 5 years, no action on official languages. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister table the Official Languages Modernization Act before Christmas, yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition wants to show his commitment to French, will he commit today to appointing bilingual judges to the Supreme Court? This is an issue, something that he didn't want to do. We'll see if they'll change their mind. We will always be there to defend the French language, to defend the French fact in Canada. That's why we regret the comments made by the member for Saint-Laurent, and she has apologized for those remarks. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The government has never spoken so much about French since the Quebec Act of 1773. In recent days and weeks, we have showcased the huge gap that separates Quebec from Canada, the Quebec values from the government values, language, culture, secularism. Let's clarify things for journalists who are watching us today. Is the Prime Minister acknowledge that the Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, we have always been here for French in Canada. As a member of Parliament from Montreal, as a Montrealer myself, I'm concerned about the fact that there are people who can't be served in French in Montreal. That is unacceptable. That's why we're going to continue to work to defend the French language. We will continue to be working alongside Quebecers to defend our language, culture, and identity, but also on the environment, on economic growth, on a federal government that is always there for Quebecers during the pandemic. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. It won't take long. We'll get him to come out with the words Bill 101 after having disavowed the member for Saint-Laurent today and the member of Heritage yesterday, who said out loud what a lot of Liberals are thinking, to such an extent that we think they must be reading Bill 101 on their bedside tables. We assume that the Prime Minister has spoken to the member for Saint-Laurent. Do they both agree, then, that French is threatened in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. People must wonder why the Bloc Québécois focuses on this subject so much. We agree we have to continue to protect the French fact in Canada and in Quebec because there is a real danger and a decline. Why are they looking for or trying to pick a fight on something we agree on? Because they don't want to acknowledge and recognize that the federal government is there to help Quebecers with the CERB, with assistance for small business, to fight the pandemic alongside the Quebec government, which is something that they see as very bad. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honestly, things are going very badly. There are outbreaks across the country. The situation in Quebec is serious. People are afraid, families are afraid, but we knew all of that. We knew that the second wave of COVID-19 was going to hit hard. But we've got less support for people than under the first wave. In the NDP, we're prepared to work together to help people. What is the Liberal government waiting for to take action? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the start of the pandemic, we have taken action to help Canadians, to help families, young people, seniors, to help businesses, small and large businesses, communities. We have sent PPE to the provinces, testing equipment. We've sent billions of dollars to the provinces so that they are ready for the second wave. And we will continue to work along with them. We'll continue to be there for Canadians during the pandemic as long as it lasts. We will be there standing behind them as a federal government.
East South.
Mr. Speaker, crowded homes in Nunavut mean the risk of the outbreak spreading is severe. In Manitoba, outbreaks in long-term care homes means that we are losing seniors. In Ontario, hospitals are being overrun. Yet despite how serious the situation is right now in the second wave, there is less help in place for people than in the first wave. Now, we as New Democrats are ready to work together to get help to people who are in need. What is this government waiting for to act now in the second wave?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have not waited. We are continuing to increase our supports to individuals, to communities, to First Nations, to the North, to provinces. Every step of the way during this pandemic, the federal government made a promise. We would have Canadians' backs. And that's exactly what we've done and what we will continue to do for as long as it takes, whatever it takes. And I look forward to working with all members of this House in order to make sure we're moving forward on getting Canadians the supports they need. Every step of the way, this government will be there for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisker.
Mr. Speaker, we all know the lengths the Prime Minister went to in his attempt to get a seat at the UN Security Council. The money he spent, the political capital he used, the tenacity he showed. The Prime Minister, his ministers, even civil servants were relentless in the campaign for the Prime Minister's vanity seat. Now, it didn't work, but the entire world knew the Prime Minister wanted this. So here's my question. Will the Prime Minister use that same focus, that same determination, and that same zeal in his fight to ensure that Keystone XL, a project that will create thousands of real jobs for Canadians, gets built?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is a project that I have supported for the past 7 years. I actually went down to Washington, D.C. to speak to a room full of Democrats before I was Prime Minister to talk about how important that project is for Canadian energy security and for American energy security. I will continue to bring that up. We continue to work on it. I brought it up in the conversation with President-elect Biden in our very first conversation. We will continue to work together on fighting climate change, on assuring energy security, and on building a better future for all of our citizens.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisker.
Well, the problem is the Prime Minister has said so many negative things about Canadian oil and gas and done so many things to kill jobs in the Canadian energy sector that nobody believes him or trusts him to do anything to stand up for these jobs in Canada. Conservatives don't trust him, and I promise you, Canadian families and energy workers do not trust this Prime Minister. So will he stand up today and will he guarantee that he is as committed to Keystone XL pipeline and making sure that it gets built as he was to his vanity UN seat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
See, Mr. Speaker, here's the problem Conservatives face. Anytime someone talks about doing right by the environment or building a greener or cleaner future, they think it's an attack on workers and on the oil sands and on our energy industry, when indeed moving forward on protecting the environment is the best way to ensure jobs and security for our energy workers and our energy industries. We know that international investors and consumers are looking for people with plans, with resolve, and with a lower carbon future. That is what we are working on building right across the country. The energy and the environment and economy go together.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, here's the problem Canadians face. This Prime Minister had a state dinner with President Obama, but Obama canceled Keystone XL, Mr. Speaker. The government is running a whole-of-government campaign to find Bill Morneau a retirement job at the OECD. The Prime Minister toured the world, meeting with despots for his UN Security Council bid, but only one phone call for the thousands of jobs that rely on Keystone XL. So my question is simple. Will the Prime Minister commit today to meet with as many American officials as possible to get this project done, to help Western Canada, to help Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, here's what Conservatives simply don't understand. You cannot get projects built. You cannot move forward to create good jobs for Canadians if you don't have a plan for the environment at the same time. If you are not committing to fight climate change. That's where Conservatives are stuck in decades past ideologies. Canadians know that the only way forward with Americans, with people around the world, is to show real leadership on climate change, the kind of leadership we have shown over the past 5 years. When will they wake up and realize to protect jobs, they need to fight climate change?
The
Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I asked some questions about the government's blind faith in compromised information. It seems that the Liberal government's not very concerned about compromised institutions. Today, Democracy Watch announced that it has filed a court challenge to the government's method of appointing judges that promotes or compromises the impartiality of the courts. The minister has declined to comment. What does this silence say about the transparency of the government? The Honourable Prime Minister. In 2015, we put in place a merit-based process for the appointment of judges. Following years of Conservative favoritism, we put in place a merit-based process based on independent recommendations to appoint judges. Judges who now reflect the diversity of our country, be it geographical diversity, for political perspective as well. It's important to have a judicial system that reflects the diversity of the country. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the same government received an F from Democracy Watch in May 2019 for transparency. The President of the Canadian Bar Association has called for changes to the judicial selection process to avoid partisan manipulation. The Minister's office refuses to comment because it knows it has a great influence over the process. Will the government consider following the advice and change the judicial selection process? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, I will point out that we put in place a merit-based process. We are looking for high-quality judges from different political backgrounds, different horizons. We have a record number of women we've appointed, members of diverse communities. We are improving the appointment process. We will continue to ensure that high-quality judges are appointed across the country. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Merit-based. The media said that this government is interfering in the appointment of judges. Democracy Watch has said that as well. The Canadian Bar Association has repeated the same thing, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister and his minister are the only ones who disagree. Will the Prime Minister accept that he is interfering in the judicial appointment process? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we put in place a robust, independent, merit-based process that enables us to appoint high-quality justices across the country. The Leader of the Opposition is quoting the media and Democracy Watch, but look what they did when they were in power. We have made improvements to the process that they had botched under Harper. We are improving the situation with respect to diversity on the bench. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, what the Prime Minister calls the French fact is the national official language of Quebec. All comments and decisions by the Supreme Court and the money by the federal government is being used to challenge and demolish Bill 101. Does the Prime Minister regret having spent Quebec taxpayers' money against French? Does he acknowledge that the Canadian Charter has demolished Bill 101 in the Supreme Court? And does the Prime Minister believe that Bill 101 is oppressive towards Anglophones in Quebec? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Court Challenges program is one that we restored after it was cut twice by the Conservatives so that people can defend themselves if their rights are violated, including many Francophones who want to ensure that they can live in their language. It's important for us, and it always will be. With respect to Bill 101, we acknowledge that for Canada to be bilingual, Quebec must be first and foremost Francophone, and that is why we support Bill 101 in what it achieves for Quebec. That is why it's important to manage bilingualism across the country. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. He's going to make the headlines today, Mr. Speaker. The last time we talked about citizenship, the government leader blew a gasket, and he said that the Bloc was trying to divide people based on language, culture, and color. The Prime Minister acknowledges that the French fact is challenged, and all of a sudden he likes Bill 101. Will he encourage his caucus to vote in favor of the legislation being put forth by the Bloc tomorrow that will require knowledge of French to obtain citizenship in Quebec, Canadian citizenship in Quebec? And I'm sure that our Conservative colleagues will be voting in favor of it. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's a bit odd and worrisome to see the Bloc aligning with the Conservatives on the French fact in Quebec and Canada, because the Conservative Party has always been the party that undermined Francophones' rights outside Quebec, that continues to sabotage the French fact by refusing to commit to appoint bilingual French-speaking judges to the Supreme Court. We will always defend the French fact in Canada, the French language, and French entities across the country. This is something that people can count on from the Liberal Party.
For Calgary Nose Hill.
The Prime Minister just said that it would be months and months before a vaccine is available in Canada, so we need to use other tools right now. Yesterday, Anthony Fauci said that Canada must test widely in the community for asymptomatic spreaders in order to stop the spread of COVID. To do this, we need things like at-home tests that people can easily buy and frequently used. And today, the U.S. approved this type of test. When will the Prime Minister allow Canadians to have this life-saving and job-saving tool?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, $25 billion. That is what we've spent, we've sent to the provinces so they can invest in testing, in contact tracing. We sent that over the summer for vulnerable people, for back to school, to support their health systems. We understand how important it is for the federal government to be there to support Canadians directly and to support the provinces. And I certainly look forward to continuing to work with the provinces on delivering these tests that they need. We delivered rapid testing to all the provinces, and hopefully soon some of the provinces will start deploying those rapid tests that we've delivered to them by the millions.
Well, member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, just to remind the Prime Minister, it's actually his job to approve technologies like at-home tests, which the Americans just approved today. And he might not realize in his rich privilege that people might not be getting tested because of the stigma. If we could have at-home tests that people could use in the privacy of their home frequently, it could be a game changer. It could keep things open. It could keep kids in schools. When will the Prime Minister stop blocking Canadians from having access to at-home tests?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it concerns me that in the middle of a pandemic where health is on everyone's mind, the opposition health critic does not understand that it is not my job to approve tests. It is not the job of the Prime Minister or any politicians to approve tests. It is the job of our professional, independent public servants who we trust to make those jobs. Maybe she thinks it's all about politics. It's not. It's about protecting Canadians and saving lives, and that is what has guided this government every step of the way in this pandemic. Science, not politics, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
understand, Mr. Speaker, is that it's his job to go to the bureaucracy and say, we need both. We need rapid test review. We need to have that sanctity and that thoroughness of review, but we need to have it quickly so that we can save lives. At-home tests should be something that the government is encouraging Health Canada to do a fulsome review in a short period of time so that we can have access to these tests and stop the pandemic in its tracks. That is his job, and it's his lack of ability to get this done that's preventing Canadians from having access to these tools. Why?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, this government has worked closely with scientists, with health professionals to ensure that they have the tools to do their jobs, that they can make the best recommendations possible to Canadians. And we have amplified those and ensured that Canadians right across the country, from public health officials to premiers, can make the right decisions to keep people safe. We've said to them, I know you're going to face difficult decisions about whether to shut down quickly or try and stretch it out a little. Well, we've made that job slightly easier by saying we will have your citizens' backs. We will have the businesses' backs. We will give those supports so you can make the decision to shut down quickly. That is what we've been there to do for the provinces, and we will continue to be there to support all Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What concerns me, Mr. Speaker, is the arrogance of this Prime Minister. We ask questions hoping for a better response from this government. Science above politics, Mr. Speaker. A year ago, they shut down the early warning pandemic system to focus on vaping, a system that for 20 years protected Canada from an outbreak like this. For 20 years, scientists were tasked to rely on their own intelligence, not on China, Mr. Speaker. So, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, if we're bothering the Prime Minister with these questions, we want to save lives, we want to save our economy.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I am sure that I didn't just hear the Leader of the Opposition say that because of something we did last year, Canadians are now facing a pandemic. The level of political attacks there that they're actually tossing out is irresponsible in a time where Canadians are looking to government and to political leaders to pull together. And that's exactly what we've done. We have been working hand in glove with the provincial governments. We've been working with local health authorities. We've been ensuring that Indigenous communities get the supports they need. We've been working directly with Canadians. We will continue to have Canadians' backs every step of the way.
Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
This government has refused to be transparent about the vaccine deals they've signed with drug makers or their plans to deliver COVID vaccines to Canadians. Just today, we learned from the Ontario Health Minister that 6 million doses of vaccine will apparently be delivered to Canada between January and March, with almost half for Ontario alone. This is just a fraction of the doses the Prime Minister claims he has secured. Why are we hearing national vaccine plans from a province? And when will this Prime Minister reveal full vaccine distribution details for Canada?
Prime Minister.